And thank you very much for staying tuned, or you're welcome to your Sunday morning if you've just woken up. My name is Jonny. I'm here for another hour. Christo takes over. We've got a brilliant hour. I'd say it was as good, maybe even better than the last hour. It was great to have Richard Sparks on, wasn't it, talking about his career as a scriptwriter. A terrific interview with Richard just now. Wonderful stuff, says James Esbester. James, morning to you. But not before we have reviewed all the papers with a solicitor advocate of the first water. Please welcome to the studio Paul Britton.
Very good morning.
It's nice to have you here,
Thank you
Paul.
for having me.
Thank you for waking up so early. And the first question is, what's a solicitor advocate?
So solicitor advocates are cross-qualified as barristers and solicitors. So
Right.
traditionally a barrister would do advocacy in the High Court, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court. But these days solicitors can cross-qualify and we have those rights of audience in the same courts.
Is it too late for me to take up a career as a barrister?
That prompts the question, how old are you, Jonny?
I'm a bit older than that.
It's never too late.
Could I do it? I mean, could I go to night school and do it? I'd love to do that. I'm not talking about barista here. I can make coffee. I'm talking about a barrister. You know, like if I could turn back time, as my friend Cher used to say, and still does actually. She's not my friend. She feels like my friend.
Are we talking about Cher?
Cher, yeah.
Okay.
If I could turn back, there's a few things that I'd like to do again because you know, I'd like to take up a career in either being a barrister, or I wouldn't have minded going into the money markets, because what I've realised about being a broadcaster is I could have done that as well.
You could have been an expert on the money market.
I could have done that
and
as
made
well.
a few pounds.
Yeah, like Rishi.
Well,
you know, he made a few quid, and then he thought, I know, I'm going to be Prime Minister after that.
You got house envy, have you, of his big...
It's not bad, is it?
It's not quite a nice house.
It's no bad. Look, the papers, I just love Sundays because, of course, the journalists have been working on these absolute huge packs of newspaper that you get on a Sunday. But then enter the Pope, who appears on Swiss telly yesterday and says, "Je suis un surrender monkey." I mean, I'm furious with him.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's okay. Go on.
Right. So basically, we'll tee this story up for those of you who've just joined us. He's urged parties in the Ukraine war to negotiate before things get worse. You know, I mean, the Ukraine is a smaller country and it has lost, from what I understand, 50 or 60,000 men. The Ukrainian government announced that a couple of weeks ago. That's a lot of men for a small country. Putin doesn't give a monkeys because he pulls in men who are from far-flung small towns in Siberia, thousands of miles away from Moscow, got nothing to do with him except that they're part of sovereign Russia. Puts them on the front line, they get killed. Apparently 300,000 soldiers have been killed. No one worries about that. And the Pope has basically popped in and said, for example, not only am I doing the bidding for Russia, he kind of said, but also I'm doing the bidding for Recep Tayyip Erdogan, that lovely friend of the West as well in Turkey, saying, I told you he'd be there, ready to make peace between the Ukrainians and the Russians. And Zelensky said, no, all right, we're going to start the negotiations now, but get off my land. That is the bottom line. Get off my land. Now, of course, that is not a good situation to be in. That is not a very strong hand at this time, because the Ukrainians are, well, they're not losing the war, but it's a war of attrition. The longer it goes on, they will lose the war. Biden's administration aren't exactly being helpful. They talk about Trump being isolationist. What about Biden? Biden's sort of isolationist as well. So
Didn't happen under Trump, though, did it?
No, but Trump is not an isolationist. That's like a complete misnomer.
No, he just puts American interests first. And it doesn't then therefore instantly follow that means
peace prevails.
I'm xenophobic and an isolationist.
Peace prevails in the Middle East because of what he did. Because what he did with the Abraham Accords, him and his guys there, his son-in-law Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt, who scribed the beautiful peace prosperity plan for the Palestinians and Israelis, brought in Saudi Arabia to the table. The only mistake that was made was that Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia started shouting off, oh yeah, we're going to make peace, it's going to happen very soon, which basically got Iran and Hamas worried, so they then precipitated the pogroms of October the 7th if he kept his mouth shut and done the deal, like the UAE and Bahrain appeared to do very suddenly on the White House lawn. Then we would have outflanked the threat and I mean the threat of Iran. When I say we, I mean Britain, I mean the West, all of the proxies that are not just in Yemen, not just in Lebanon, and not just in Gaza, but also here in the UK. So do you really think, after all that the Pope is right?
Back to the Pope. I think that we talk about the casualties in Ukraine,
Yes,
but it's human lives being lost on both sides.
it's terrible. I'm not saying it's not.
So I just think war, one thing that humans seem to never be able to get away from is the art of killing each other and finding reasons to do it. I mean, we haven't had any peace. There's just never been any peace around the world. There's always something going on actively. And I think it's not just Ukrainian soldiers that are dying, it is Russians. And even more sad is that, Putin is taking them from satellite rural villages,
Yes,
and pulling them into the war, and they have no choice but to fight.
but what do you do when there's a ceasefire on October the 6th and people are at the bus stop going about their business, and kids are enjoying a festival a mile from Gaza, and the music's so loud that they can hear it in Gaza? They live side by side, but they know each other.
It's right that we encourage peace, and I mean, what was the
started
undertone of
it.
the Pope's message is, I mean, sometimes the words are one thing, but his overall message is that we've got to stop the war. And I mean, the easy scenario is that Russia stops what it's doing, retreats, moves back to its own borders, and respects Ukrainian sovereignty.
But if I wanted to listen to Edwin Starr's War, What Is It Good For? Absolutely Nothing, I would have just listened to Spotify. I don't need the Pope saying the same thing. It's okay to hear it on Motown.
But then what would you rather his message
and
have
John
been?
Lennon's Imagine, we all live in peace, great. Me and Yoko, we're going to eat chocolate cake. It's nonsense.
But then, Johnny,
it's nonsense, Paul.
Is he not to have any message? Or would you rather... is it the words that you're offended by?
You'd expect the Pope to say the words of peace.
Yeah.
But when he's actually inviting... Surrender and saying, oh, yeah, we've got this bloke in Turkey, he seems a good lad.
Yeah.
Erdogan, who's a threat to the West, and he holds quite a lot of power in terms of refugee leakage into Western Europe. And the European Union have to pay him to stop.
So had the message been Putin's got to stop and withdraw back to Russian territory,
that would have been helpful.
Okay.
And then he could still do all the kind of John Lennon stuff. And in the 1980s, talking to Richard Sparks...
I was born in 83.
Right. So you don't remember the young ones in real time. You might have seen it on YouTube.
Okay.
But, we used to make fun of people who believed in this kind of stuff, like Rick. Peace, great, and Neil, heavy, and now they run the world, and they embolden dictators.
Yeah,
it's really scary, Paul.
It's worrying. No, it is.
It's really worrying. I'm not on my own.
Can you imagine
here.
if we had this attitude in the 40s and the 50s?
Absolutely.
I mean, seriously.
No, good. I'm glad we agree on that. I was a bit worried.
Make it a bit light-hearted, but no, seriously. If
we can't have
we
this.
had that attitude, and you've had the Pope standing up and saying the British should just surrender and talk about peace, where would we be now?
Exactly.
We probably wouldn't be talking in this language for a start.
Exactly. And there doesn't appear to be a Winston Churchill on the world stage.
No, there isn't.
And
no, there just isn't, is there?
Do we need one of those? Do we need a Gary Oldman?
Well, okay, was Trump
run the country?
Was Trump a Winston Churchill? Because the world was quite quiet under Trump.
He didn't start any wars.
No, well, Russia
he is a sort of counterintuitive. I mean, he's got bad table manners.
Yeah.
But he had a very, very good administration.
You remember he bombed Syria very early on.
Yes.
When they
he also assassinated Soleimani, the big dog in the Iranian regime.
Well, he didn't assassinate him, but
his boys did. His boys did. Yeah. He's the commander-in-chief, isn't he?
Yeah. So, King Jong-un was very quiet in those 5 years.
Yeah. He went to see him, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, they did meet.
He doesn't look like Michael McIntyre. Have you noticed?
But you know that
Kim Jong-un. That's one for you, Johnny.
You keep your enemies close. Your friends close and your enemies closer, right? So
he honestly, he sort of broke a few taboos there, didn't he? He also insists, Paul, that when he gets into power, the war in Ukraine will be over in 24 hours. How does that work?
I don't know what his thinking is behind that. I'm sure the people that hate Trump will say, because Putin's his mate, and that will be the end of it. Or maybe he has some influence over Ukraine and get them to do what the Pope has said and surrender, or come to some sort of territory negotiation. But yeah, I do think that under Trump it was much quieter. And when you talk of Winston Churchill, I think it's when you've got someone strong on the world stage, the world does think twice. There was, naval vessels, American naval vessels in the Gulf Sea, zero intimidations under Trump. Under the last year of Barack Obama, over 50.
Yeah.
Because Trump said, if you're intimidated, you can fire first.
Yeah.
And it makes people think, hold on a minute, do we really want to put a foot out of line?
Which brings me on to the next headline, which I saw,
here
which is that Biden and Trump both said to each other they are a threat to democracy. And, you've just argued the Trump case against Biden, whereas Biden is saying freedom is on the electoral ballot in November, and he believes that he represents American values. Well, he certainly talks a good game in the traditional American idea of blue jeans and post-war settlement, whereas Trump appears to talk the same language as Grant Shapps talks, the defense secretary. Now, this is the last comparison I'm going to make between Trump and Shapps.
Yeah.
But Shapps piped up in a speech the other day that, that post-war settlement we've enjoyed, where we're very prosperous and enjoying our lives in freedom, and we can all go to church, synagogue and mosque and temple every week.
That one, yeah.
That new chestnut, that nice one. Well, it's about to finish because we're about to enter a pre-war. And Trump appears to be the 21st century candidate, and Biden, to my mind, appears to be the 20th century candidate. What do you think?
Having a dig at each other over democracy. What does this stem from?
It's a shock, isn't it?
Well, it stems from insurrection, doesn't it? It stems from Trump when Biden came when he was sworn in, and the storm. But is that the long and short of it? Is that Biden's case?
Yeah.
That we have a risk to our democracy because Trump supported.
Yeah.
I have not seen conclusive evidence that he supported it. And actually the Supreme Court have said in the States that he can go on the roll. So back on the ballot paper.
So Trump won, Biden nil, I think is what we're saying.
I think that's what it is.
I think that's what
But then people will say that, how did Trump get that result in the Supreme Court in the States?
Well, because the arc of justice is long.
But they'll say that he put the judges there.
Freedom. Oh, I see.
It comes back to that.
Okay, yeah, because of course that's what you can do in this.
And he did. Country. He put plenty in.
0344499 1000. Talk to Paul Britton. He is our solicitor advocate for the show, and he's our newspaper reviewer. Which story would you like to do next?
We can do, is Boris Johnson looking to come back
in time
for the general election?
I love this story. So he's sort of, I love the idea that he can sort of do what he wants.
I was looking at the bookies odds.
Go on.
To see, because I always think that's kind of a good barometer.
Yes, as what?
So Boris is way down. 50-1
to be the next Tory leader.
Yeah, well, to be the next Prime Minister.
To be the next Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
50-1.
Yeah.
David Cameron 10-1.
Oh no,
he's doing better. Rishi 7-1. What's Kieran?
Oh, probably 2 to 7.
1 to 6.
1 to 6.
He's the favourite.
Yeah, he's got to be, hasn't he?
So what will this country look like under a Labour government?
Which is the question I'm now going to give to you.
What?
Because that is what you're here for. What will the country look like under? In fact, he's one of your lot, isn't he? He's a lawyer.
He's a barrister.
He's a barrister.
Yeah.
The former director of public prosecutions.
Yeah.
Do you like him?
Do you remember Boris got in trouble because he said you were the one that let Jimmy Savile get off or something? He said it in. And Boris got in big trouble about it.
Yeah.
He didn't get to apologise in the end.
Is it true?
I don't know.
No.
I'd have to research that.
Research that one. Yeah.
Did he let him get off?
Yeah.
Of course he didn't let him get off. I'm sure he.
But it was during his time. I think what he was intimating was it was during his time as DPP.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing I can say about prosecutors, the Crown prosecutors, they do fight tooth and nail. They are worthy advocates. Just because they're paid by public money, they're as good as private defence solicitors. So,
I heard John Cruddas, that well-known Blairite character who's leaving Parliament, this time round, saying that Starmer is a very interesting Labour leader because he's not as tribally married to any particular part of the party. Because even though he's left-leaning and he did a lot of advocacy for left-of-centre ideas during his whole time and then joined the Labour Party later on in his career, he's not like Blair or Wilson or Callaghan, all those other Labour guys who were sort of brought up in a... No, but what I'm saying is that these guys were you know, Labour kids. You know, they were part of gangs within Labour, and so they have these tribal associations with part of the Labour Party, whereas Starmer is a kind of new kid on the block, and he's not married in terms of, oh, you know, you and me, kid, when we were 17, you know, fighting away as we were in our constituency party, all that kind of stuff that went on. I'm sure he's got cronies. I'm sure he has like-minded people. I mean, he was the guy who campaigned for Corbyn, which I think is a massive design fault.
But I mean, they're very different. He's changed the party. He's pulled it in such a direction, and actually, the Corbyn rights, those followers, don't particularly like him.
They don't like him.
So I'm surprised when you say that is he kind of a to all then? Is he a man to all? Is it?
You know when he says,
is he a pleaser?
Yeah. When I say
you can't do that though, can you?
You can't do it. You know, he says things like, "I'm laser focused. I am laser focused on all sorts of laser focused things to get in to make sure that you in the country are more prosperous." And I'm thinking to myself, basically what that means is I will say literally anything.
This is what it's going to look like.
I will say anything to get into power. That's kind of what. And he started off very. You
did that very well.
Well, thank you.
Carry on.
The right honourable gentleman is thanked. But I think, like I'll give you an example on Ghazi. You know, he supported Rishi Sunak's position, where literally Sunak said to Netanyahu, "I hope you win," and that is where Keir started. That he associated Israel's right to defend itself with his position as a future prime minister, and then it all got hot under the collar, and he went, "Oh yeah, did I say that? Well, I'm laser focused on saying the complete opposite now." And you know, if we take it to the logical conclusion, if you are negotiating or supporting a ceasefire, you are supporting Hamas's right to do it again.
Well, and it shows a lack of integrity.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. I'm worried about it.
But we can say that about probably all of our politicians. You know, when it's so superficial. If you scratch a little bit deeper, you know, who are they?
Yeah.
What do they actually stand for?
Yeah.
Not just echoing what the public might say or a protest. You know, we need to know. I just don't know why they can't just stand with some conviction. And
we need a conviction politician
and tell us
left or right,
and then we can vote for them based on what we believe.
In the year you were born,
83,
there was a brilliant general election between two complete pole opposite conviction politicians. So Margaret Thatcher,
a woman,
the absolute ideologue.
Yeah,
I believe in what I believe in. No. And then Michael Foot, who was the good old-fashioned socialist in the donkey jacket, who believed in nuclear disarmament for the purposes of nuclear disarmament. He wasn't pro-Russian. He was just, you know, dear old chap who believed in that sort of thing. And I got a lot of respect for Michael Foot. He wasn't my ideological bedfellow. For both of them. But they were conviction guys.
They had conviction.
They did.
And they knew what they believed, and they were happy to talk about it. And they were happy to receive criticism. Yeah. I mean, Thatcher in particular, if you criticised her, she jumped on it.
She had a go.
Always had an answer.
She had a go, didn't she?
It wasn't just, oh, I'm going to go with this. It's like, it's all well thought out on how she got there. And she can take you right back to why she's got to that answer.
And
she telling you the answer now.
And she was a lawyer as well.
Yeah, okay.
And she invented ice cream.
I didn't know this.
Well, she was part
of the... She invented ice cream.
She was part of the process which created freezable ice cream.
Gelato ice cream.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, which is one in the eye for Italy.
Daughter of a...
Something like that. I have to probably look that up on Wikipedia if I were you, like, fact check that. Aerated it. It was like Mr. Whippy, says
Someone
Mark.
Googled it.
Co-producer right here. He's at TalkTV Through the Window. Thank you for that. Now, we're going to take a short break. Your calls... Let's get Paul Britton exercised with your calls and your texts. 87222 at TalkTV, at Jonny Gould. Paul Britton, solicitor advocate, reviewing the papers. You know where to do. It's TalkTV and Jonny in the Chair.